thank you for joining us for the Archive Science Fiction Against the Margins series, which is part of the PST Art and Science Collide, presented by the Getty. We're thrilled to be part of this program and to thank the Getty for its generous support in making this project possible. When the curators for this series envisioned science fiction against the margins, they started during COVID, putting together ideas and creative inspiration largely in isolation, connecting through technology. Film programming, filmmaking, and archiving are all incredibly collaborative efforts. So it's no wonder that after considering over 300 works that pushed against the boundaries of science fiction, the moving images selected often reflected that reimagined hero. Tonight's films embody this alternate reality. While the Science Fiction Against the Margins series continues through mid-December, and we encourage you to return, I'm delighted that we opened the evening with a trailer for a 7-night series launching November 1st. A film series for you, celebrating the Giant Robot's 30th anniversary, was curated with the iconic magazine's co-founder, Eric Nakamura, and features special guests almost every night. Please visit cinema.ucla.edu for more details. All of the archives screening in the Wilder are free thanks to a gift from an anonymous donor, and we're grateful to them for their support and to the Hammer Museum for our long-standing collaboration. We're in gratitude to the series community partners, the Sundance Institute and the UCLA International Institute, and we want to thank the CalArts Office of Alumnex and Family Engagement and Queer Film LA, who are also tonight's community partners. Many thanks to our colleagues in the UCLA School of Theater, Film, and Television who collaborated with us, not only in supporting the public program, but also the faculty who contributed to the forthcoming anthology of original scholarship accompanying this series. And big thanks to the archive staff for all their work, for the work that they do, for our public programs to make them a success. I want to call out our fantastic curators for the series, distinguished Professor Chan Noriega, as well as archive staff members Maya Montañez-Smuckler and Nicole Ucero. Nicole is a fantastic part of the team, wrote tonight's film notes, and is a driving force behind this series. Finally, I'd like to thank our theater staff and projection team who make all of our screenings possible. We're joined by two relatively new members of the team tonight, Alex Blevins, senior projectionist, who started a few months ago, in the booth, and Beandrea July, public programmer who joined the archive team last month. Beandrea is a film programmer, independent cultural writer, film critic, and audio producer based in Los Angeles. Most recently, she was the 2023 to 2024 Nieman Journalism Fellow at Harvard University, where she studied Black film criticism in the early 20th century. She's also a freelance film critic for the New York Times and was a producer for the 2023 CNN podcast, The Prince Mixtape, which was named one of the best podcasts of 2023 by Spotify. Beandrea is also a member of the Los Angeles Film Critics Association. We're delighted that she's joined the team and that she'll be the moderator for tonight's Q&A. So to share more about tonight's programs, please join me in welcoming her to the stage.
Good evening. Lovely to see you all here. I'm super happy and honored to be joining the archive and hopefully contributing to the great work that goes on here. Before we get into the details of tonight's program, I just want to highlight a couple upcoming programs that you should look out for. One is next Sunday. My colleague Mark Quigley, the John H. Mitchell television curator, is presenting an Afrofuturist program that has work about Gil Scott-Heron, A Tribe Called Quest, and George Clinton, Parliament and the Funkadelic, all in one program. So if you can take that much funk, you should come back. And also, just looking ahead to our closing night for the Science Fiction Against the Margins series, we're having the Palestinian filmmaker Larissa Sansour here presenting work. So just check out all the details at cinema.ucla.edu. Hope to see you come back. So let's get into tonight's program. Tonight's program, as you know, is called Tech Decay. It consists of 3 films. The first up will be 2 short films, One is called AI Mama, directed by Asuka, and who's actually here tonight. I'll tell you more about her in a minute, about them in a minute. And the other short is called Core Dump Dakar, directed by Francois Notes. And the third is a feature-length film called Neptune Frost by the co-directors Anisia Uzeyman and Saul Williams, who are thankfully here tonight, and we'll do a Q&A after that, so definitely stick around. And Tech Decay is a visual contemplation of what happens after years of use and misuse of the tech materials we rely on to communicate. The films in this program imagine the post-tech era in which these discarded materials take their own course, at times seeking revenge against their creators. In AI Mama, recycled scraps of tech are assembled to revive forgotten dreams, while in Core Dump Dakar, it tracks the effects of humans scavenging and melting minerals for the resale in the West African capital of Senegal. And in Neptune Frost, the toxic and deadly mining of coltan, used to power lithium batteries, our iPhones, sets the scene for uprising and inner and outer transformation. And all of these films shine a light on human efforts to create, control, and destroy methods of communication, and to imagine a post-tech future right now, in the here and now. So we're fortunate to have the AI Mama director here, Asuka. I want to just read their bio. Asuka is a filmmaker currently based in Los Angeles and a co-founder of Total Blur Films. Their work wanders from anarchic cyberpunk to meditative folk tales. Let me say that again. Anarchic cyberpunk to meditative folk tales, united by themes of yearning and conflicting realities. Please welcome Asuka.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, May. Thank you, Beandrea, for starting off the program. I'm going to read off of paper because I'm really nervous. It's easier to do this. Okay. To create a work of science fiction, one does not need an imagination. The tension of the future lies within the present. In AI Mama, Kay breathes life into a computer by feeding it their childhood diary entries, thus creating an echoed form of their mother. The influences of Tetsuo the Iron Man and other Japanese cyberpunk films will be obvious, but other than a homage, I wanted to reflect on how artificial intelligence is used on all of us, which is now almost inescapable. Like a mother, AI is built to predict our needs and desires. But what happens when we use tools that save us from crucial steps? What comes out of the black box, and what is left behind? The answer is all around us. Google AI falsely summarizing our searches to cut down the time we take to find information. Predictive policing in historically over-policed black and brown neighborhoods. The Israeli military's AI program Lavender to permit the bombing of countless Palestinian civilians. We simply need to look at the presence of power, control, imperialism, disguised as efficiency. What is left untranslated within this collateral damage of data? Cyborgs are human, machine, mother, child, creator, and creation all at once. And we can apply this synthesis to ourselves, regardless of binaries that cleanly divide gender, sexual orientation, race, nationality, enemy, or ally. We constantly dissolve these borders with the facts of our existence. And so, like the Iron Man and the metal fetishist, the filmmaker and the camera open endless possibilities to rust the whole world with their cyborg beauty. Thank you. And enjoy the films tonight.
Anisia Uzeyman is an actress, playwright, and director. Born in Rwanda, she studied drama at the Superior School of Theater in France. And her directorial debut, Dream States, was shot entirely on iPhones and starred Saul Williams. William Nadilam and Bosia. The film premiered at LAFF in 2016. She's also directed numerous music videos. And as an actress, Anisia has starred in, among others, the award-winning film Aujourd'hui T'es, where she met Saul Williams, and the feature film Haïti, Mon Amour by Getty Felin, which premiered at TIFF 2017. Her first book, a poetic treatment of her original screenplay, Saul Mia, you'll correct me on that, was published by Not a Cult in 2021. And Saul Williams is a poet, musician, and actor. He is the co-director, screenwriter, and composer of the science fiction musical Neptune Frost. Saul made his acting and screenwriting debut in the 1998 feature Slam, which won Sundance's Grand Jury Prize and the Cannes Film Festival's Camera d'Or. Saul has released 6 albums and published 5 books of poetry. All right, so give it up for Anisia Uzeyman and Saul Williams. Yeah, sorry to do that to you. So I guess, the thing that really strikes me about this film, I've seen it a number of times now, is just how it's one of those films that you go back to every time you watch it, you can get something new out of it. And as I was telling you earlier, the first time I saw it, which I think was when you premiered at TIFF, the Toronto International Film Festival in 2021, and then I recently rewatched it, in preparation for this screening, and it felt so much like we had moved so much in time between just those 3 years. Like, it feels so much less far away. And so I wonder if you could start out talking about the issue of time, how you approach time in this film, because it's obviously, the narrative is sort of both timeless and also like very specific.
Yes.
Well, I think that the approach to time in this film, it's an interesting question, just because even as we were in the process of writing music, world building, creating, the story, we kind of mapped out. I feel like in my head, I kind of knew it would take around 7 years to do it. And I knew that there'd be like 3 albums worth of material, all this stuff, and so the sense of, like, I don't know, you think of like Double Dutch and timing your entrance in that thing. It's like, but when the ropes are over there, like just in terms of the prescience of the topic, right? Like, because even when we released the film in the summer of 2022, we were still having to explain to people what Colton was. And here we are, right? And it's been about a year now that the majority of us are like, oh yes, what's happening in the Congo, right? So to consider the fact that we started working on this, surrounding this topic in 2013-ish, we were aware of the fact that we were talking about something that it was important to bring up, for it to be a part of the social dialogue. And even when we introduced it, let's say on Kickstarter in 2018, we saw the sort of engagement and excitement that came from people going, oh shit, that's interesting. But because of the fact that this film is kind of gauged on this sense of there's the kind of film we want to see, there was never any sense of time getting in the way. We just kind of knew when things had to happen. And the most urgent moment came right before we went into production. That was when we were clear that it was now or never. And we had a lot of forces, moneyed forces, that were trying to tell us at the time, well, you don't have all the money. You shouldn't shoot right now. And we were already we started shooting this film on February 3rd, 2020,
2020. Mm-hmm.
and wrapped on March
For
4th, 2020.
Y'all remember what happened then, right?
You remember what happened then, right? So, but when we were doing pre-production in Rwanda in November, December, and start building the set and working with the actors and the whole nine, and still raising money, we definitely had people who were like, "No, maybe it's one of those projects that you shoot a little now and you shoot what you can afford now." We're like, "No, it's now or never." We had not heard about what was happening and what was going to happen. We had no idea. Not until the last 3 or 4 days of the shoot, someone said, "Did you hear about that thing?" We're like, "What thing?" Someone said, "I heard about something in China. Did you hear about that thing?" The last 3 or 4 days of the shoot, we were in the whirlwind of the film. We had no idea.
Right. You didn't even look at your dailies, right? I think I remember
Exactly.
you saying that.
No, we didn't even have time to look at our dailies as we were shooting. So we wrapped on March 4th, and we had an engagement that we had been scheduled to attend since December in Rwanda, in Kigali, a red carpet event for our friend's film that was coming out in Rwanda. We knew that we'd go to it on March 7th, March 8th, and we arrived at the event, and there was a long line. And we were like, "This is crazy. Why is a line in the parking lot to get in this thing? Everybody has invitations. What is it?" And as we got closer, we saw these two people in white lab coats with white guns pointing them at the head of everybody who entered, taking their temperature. But we had never seen that before. We had never seen that before.
That didn't used to be common.
That wasn't
Right.
common. So we were like, "What the hell are they doing? Why are they pointing these white guns at their head?" And the next day, the country shut down, which is way before things shut down here. We arrived here in Los Angeles on March 17th with our towers. And so I say that in response to your question about time, right? I told you when we started the project, the subject matter, how that correlates with everything we're talking about now, all of those things. So there's a sort of kind of a wizardry in our relationship to time. We knew that we had to shoot the film then. We knew, but we didn't know what we learned.
I feel also that there is a global thing that is happening with time right now for the last year, and before that with COVID. I think the sense of time has kind of shape shifted, and so things that we were projecting as a fiction suddenly became real. You see?
Right.
Yeah. So I feel that it's that is what's happening with the viewing of the film between 2021 and 2024, which is nothing in time, but which seems to be, I don't know, I feel that relationship to time also globally and personally.
The last, from the pandemic to the ongoing genocide, what time has meant to all of us at this point is just crazy. How many years we've lived over the past few years, Yeah. And then one other thing I'll add on a personal side note is that I have a special relationship with time, and I always have. But it's one of the main things I've written about. I write about time all the time. I've always had a weird fixation and relationship with time because of the fact that my birthday's on leap year. And so I've had 13 birthdays. I'm 13 years old, right? And so
Wow.
it's always made me look at empire, because it's empire that we follow the Gregorian calendar from the Roman Empire. Before that, it was the the Julius calendar, all of this stuff. So it's always made me look at empire, how how we project this idea of time versus how it's experienced.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so, anyway.
Yeah, and I'm really struck by, I'm always interested when there's co-directors, how the collaboration works. And I know, Anisia, you were the cinematographer on this project. Obviously, Saul, you worked on the music, the script, and I'm sure there's overlap there in some respect. But I wonder, maybe Anisia, if you could start out just telling us how did you approach the collaboration, and how did that unfold on set?
Well, yeah, the collaboration was very natural. There is nothing that was like set, like we decide to do this, or we'll meet at this point for this. It was very organic, and everything like kind of flow. Um, so Saul started the project with writing the music, and I was in the next room, and I was hearing the music come together to life, and he was building the soundscapes and approaching words and characters. And so me, I was thinking of colors and moods and shape and movement, and so he would write down something, and then I would come and contextualize it in a cinematographic language, meaning movement, framing,
Anisia has that along with her sense of vision and what have you is also a technical sense, and I characterize Anisia as an actual director, where where I don't think I would be able to execute this without her, and so I would write down ideas, and like she was saying, there are times where she'd be like, yeah, but you have to think of the camera movement, you have to
he would be like giving some crazy ideas, like and now it's his heartbeat, and 20 drummers are there.
Yeah.
And we hear it's his heart, but in fact it's and so
when he lifts up the body, like it's his heart, but we
then,
hear see.
and so I would be like, oh great. How are we gonna do this, how to pan, how to make it like feel like how he writes it, so it was like a kind of already translation that further along the line would go into translating into Kinyarwanda, into the language. There is a lot of so it was, and so I would say, oh, we could do this, and then he would be like, oh, so the next scene can be this, it's like that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I like that she said translation, because something that popped up in my head about writing music, writing lyrics in English, that made me, it was important for me to write loosely, so to speak, like just the idea and the important thing and those things, and not too much more, because we knew that it wasn't going to stay there. I knew that I was writing the subtitles, and I was very excited about that. Actually, that's all I wanted to be able to claim. Was like, I wrote the subtitles. So then in the translation, it became very important to keep the gist up, because of course certain ideas, in different languages, they translate differently, to keep the gist of things so that they would stay true. So that if someone who speaks Kinyarwanda could watch the film and go, what the fuck is happening in the subtitles? That's not the, what I'm saying? Like, it needed to find that balance. So anyway, yeah, there's a lot of of that happening, literally and kind of metaphorically as well, in terms of. But you know, Anisia in the next room, Anisia would send me like in a day like 40 images that she sourced, and like, look at this, look at this, look at this. So then those images found their way into the music, so to speak. Like, oh wow, yeah. You know, so
Yeah.
there was a lot of back and forth and organic.
Yeah, no, yeah. Or I would take a lyric, met that girl on Friday night, you know, and purple light, and what, yeah, you know, and it was also like that. The communication was also through, you know, moods and yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's worth to me saying just how beautiful the images are. And, you know, I always, in particular, am happy when, because throughout film history, it's been so rare that like melanated skin tones are lit properly and lit in such artful ways. And so many of your scenes happen at night. And yet, there's no, distance between us and the characters, and so I think also what's really interesting about your film, as many forms as it breaks, like when you actually watch it, it feels like that's a function of the way you constructed it behind the scenes. I understand that you, like, when you casted, you empowered your actors to help create the characters. Of course, you had these amazing. I wore my keyboard earrings today because of as an homage to the bomber that Matalusa wears. Did you all see that? Yes. You had some amazing creative collaborators.
Yeah, amazing.
So tell us a little bit more about like how you work with the actors and how you brought your creative crew on board.
You know, it that's when something has to happen. I don't know. There is a kind of evidence that manifested throughout this project at each step. So for the costumes and production design, Cedric Misero, who is a young Rwandan artist, fashion designer, genius, resourceful, that we met in 2017 when we went to kind of for scouting, and in the same time we shot a Caesar reel because we were about to do a crowdfunding for the film, and we met that young, very shy genius through a friend. And
he came by to meet us through this friend, and she'd be like, you have to meet this artist, like he works in fashion and all this stuff, but it's zero waste stuff that he does, you just have to meet him. And so we met him and told him what we were there working on, and the idea of Neptune and e-waste and a village made of computer parts, all this stuff, And he shows up the next day, and he goes, something like this? And he had made sandals out of motherboards. And
he was 23.
Yeah.
Very, so we were like, and so that
from that he was a
I
part
think
of our
that,
team.
Yeah, that's a very important. It's like those magical meetings that are I don't know that goes beyond what is
that's kind
required
of,
or what you need. It just nourishes. He nourished so much of this film with his world, his talent, his eye.
And he introduced us to a number of young artists, artisanal artists, who worked on the set with him, and
so he had a full crew.
Yeah.
And then we met here Tanya Melendez, who did the makeup here in Los Angeles, and
AKA Lady Soulfly. on Instagram.
And when
You had already worked with her.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then we were like, wouldn't be they would be great together. They would be great. So it's the only artist that we brought from the United States to Rwanda for the set, and they just
Bonded immediately.
bonded
Yeah.
and created, and so it was also a kind of duo, that was like very yeah,
Just
interesting and
synergistic.
yeah.
So Tanya did hair and makeup. Tanya arrived on set, arrived in the country. Like, she arrived late, remember?
She arrived the first day.
The first day of shooting. So she didn't have any prep. She brought her suitcases to the set and began doing people's hair and she came with all these ideas and met Cedric right then and there and like
and just
yeah.
they just brought it.
You all should start thinking about your questions. I'm going to ask one more question, then we're going to throw it to you all. If our house staff can get the mics ready too. Watching it this time, something that really struck me was the way you all portrayed gender. And I wonder if you could just talk about what was the genesis there of how were you thinking about gender and portraying that transition of your protagonists on screen?
Well, I mean, it's an idea that was there from the jump, right? We were looking at the spectrum of gender. We were looking at the technology of awareness, right? And our relationship to that technology and to our own awareness and all of this. And then on many other levels, right, too, because we were looking at wiring, how things are wired, and looking at our own hardware and how we are wired, software. And so it was a consistent part of the metaphor, so to speak, from the jump, and it also had to do with the sort of futuring of social dialogue and saying this is also something that needs to be a part of this conversation. If we're also talking about the drum as the earliest form of wireless communication, we also need to, signify the role that colonialism has played on gender, and we need to, have a character that kind of symbolizes this, So, yeah, I mean, it was as important as everything else,
Right.
which was everything else being everything from like the time and attention Anisia put into lighting dark skin, into the fact that there are no white people in the movie, into the fact that like all these things that are all intentional, that are all
I think it also talked to empowerment. It's a film that is
that was
that approaches that notion of how to reclaim your own power, and one of the way in narration, it's also to be in conversation with life, with what with all of the things that are not centered in narration. So to film in Rwanda with those actors in that language and about those things, all of that, sounded fun, sounded like what we wanted to talk about, and that is not talked about. And how can we provide a magical, space for those stories to just be.
And it did engender something even on set. I'm thinking of LOL.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, Yeah, yeah. It was also the building of. It when you make that type of stories and you are willing to tell those type of stories, of course, it attracts also a way of thinking, a set of providing safe space, of a safe space for all those characters and stories. And so of course it also attracted people in reality, in real life, actors that found a space there that was that
Yeah.
was
Welcoming.
welcoming.
So when while we were in Rwanda doing pre-production in November, December, October of 2019, a lot of the roles have been cast, but not all of them. And one of the roles that hadn't been cast was the role of LOL. LOL is the character who has the kind of like robotic arm, and up until a certain day, uh, LOL was essentially written to be a dude, right? But one day we arrived after scouting. We arrived back at our office, and we were told, "There's someone here waiting for you." And
Yeah, and someone had been waiting for us for many hours, and we see Rebecca Muccio, who is there and who says, well, I'm here because I feel that it's the only place I can, be. I think I need to be here. I heard about this project, and I'm looking for a job. I just got outed.
step back into the country, yeah.
And I was on a TV show, and I was fired, and I cannot find any job anymore, etc. And I'll do anything because I feel that this space is and we are allowed to tell that story because she herself, asked us to tell that story. So he saw her and
Yeah, so she's like, I can, I don't know if you have, because she's a director and an actress, and had said, I can, I can work in any capacity on set. It's just that, I need to be in a safe space, and I really feel like this is a welcoming place, environment, and blah 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 blah. But as she's talking, I'm like, Anisia, can I talk to you for a second? And I go in the other room like, couldn't that be LOL? Like, isn't that her? Like,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
so we went back, and she pulled out a camera. You started filming her. I was like, can we
Yeah.
do a little screen test? And
Yeah. I feel like there are like a million stories
They are
on your
yeah, but you
project.
see,
Like
yeah.
it's like even more than usual, which is amazing. I want to turn to you all. Does anyone have a question? There's someone here on my left. Yes, Mike's coming to you.
Hi. Thank you for being here. Your film was beautiful. I wanted to ask, largely when I look up this film, it's described as an Afrofuturist film. So I'm wondering how y'all feel about that classification and what that term means to you.
Great question.
great. So, real quick, that is a word that Anisia nor I ever used while thinking of this project. We were making a science fiction musical, but we were aware once we started showing it to people, and people go, "Oh, this is Afrofuturism." We saw the public dialogue, and had conversations about how much energy we should put into fighting it, or just like let these motherfuckers call it whatever they want. you know, you know. Um, but for us, what is amazing is that our on our opening night, right, and wasn't our premiere that we went to was in Brooklyn at BAM?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, where we discussed Afropresentism.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Afro-presentism.
yeah, with Nima and
Well, you know, if you talk to the production designer, fashion, that made the costumes, for him, he's like, no, this is our life. This is how
this is how we dress.
you know. So yeah, it's always interesting. Gender, all of that. It's
Yeah,
always
so I mean, in a nutshell, like we, without putting too much weight on it, it's not something that we were contemplating. I consider myself lucky because as a teenager, I was reading Octavia Butler, and and I and that to me was the gift, and it didn't fit into the box of whatever those types of terms and terminology. I mean, I have the same sort of problems when people say shit like spoken word or slam poetry. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? But then I see Miles Davis and Charles Mingus get upset when people call their music jazz. So I'm like, okay, I get it. Okay, whatever.
We have time for one more question. There's a gentleman down here I'm seeing.
Go quick. Go ahead.
I'll just repeat the question. What would you say are the narrative structural elements that are specifically Rwandan?
A lot. First off, the drums. I mean, it's really, those drums are really specific to Rwanda and Burundi. And Rwanda and Burundi are built up on cosmogony that centers the drum. So the drum is very important in our ancestral beliefs. So then after that, I would say that in terms of the rhythm, the layers, and the poetry of the film as well, there is a great tradition of epic poetry in Rwanda, which were the poems of the court, right? So everything was told through poems. That's how we have our archives, actually. And so the meeting between Saul and the Rwandan poets is, I think, very specific and very in connection, at least with that tradition of and then I think the thing in front of the of it all is those people, the land.
I mean, as an outsider, this is the greenest place I've ever been. I mean, I so love the idea of scouting, as an opportunity to see these countless hills after hills. It's like a country of San Francisco in terms of hills. Seriously, it's just hills and green upon green upon green upon green, and it's just mind-blowing just the dimensions of green and scenery in those regards. And so when you take that and you think about this sort of documentarian National Geographic relationship that many Westerners have with depictions of the continent. Or you think about Rwanda and how that is pushed to be perhaps the last thing you would think about is the beauty of it, right? All of these things are crucial elements, and actually from the jump, I mean, the entire story, the question of smashing and transforming this sense of the binary and all of this stuff was born out of my initial conversations and interactions with Anisia. So even more than what she has described, like all of it comes from this sort of
So there is no tradition of film per se in Rwanda. There was no film before the 2000. Literally none. There is one King Solomon and the Mayans or something like
with
that.
Paul Robeson.
That they shot in the 1950s, you know, where you can see the dancers, etc. It's a crazy film.
1937.
1937?
Yes.
Yeah, crazy. So in terms of moving images, it's really before the 2000. It's really like the traces that the archives that we have are like either religious filming of event or ONGs and things like that, and then came also all the images of horror that came out of there, and so in terms of the tradition of filmmaking, there is everything to be done, and so there is also a desire to give more than to take. You see, so to be part of a possibility for telling stories in new ways, or out of the gaze of colonialism, out of the gaze of horror, or out of the gaze of documentary, but just really trying to find what is it. Yeah.
And one more quick story, which is that at one point, there is a woman in the film, the elder woman who plays Anam. Her name is Cecile Kariegba, and it is, from a Rwandan perspective, it's as if we have Nina Simone or Cesaria Evora in the film. Exactly, yeah. Like it's such an important icon, and the fact that she agreed to be in the film is crazy. And she's an extraordinary poet as well as singer, and
it was her first film appearance.
Yes, yeah. It's her screen debut at the age of 75 or whatever when we shot it. And it's really her handing the baton to a new generation of artists there, who are all like the days that she spent on set, who are all gathering around her, and like, like it's, it's like, if,
It's serious.
Yeah, serious. But before we cast her, which came about in a last minute sort of way, and it was a beautiful thing how it happened. But before that happened, we were looking for the person who would play this elder woman. And at one point we were looking at, we considered the mother of Kaya, who plays Mataluza, one of the main characters. And so he's like, well, maybe my mother will do it. And he's like, but I don't know, because, she's very religious, and I don't know. And so it's like, she wants to meet you. She wants to meet you. You come to our house, she wants to meet you and talk to you, and then we'll see if she'll do it. So I go to meet Kaya's mom. And so she's like, so tell me about this movie. What is this story? And so I tell the story of this intersex hacker and the minors and da-da-da and da-da-da-da, and the transformation, and being born in your 23rd year and all of this stuff, And when I finish, she goes, Kaya, you know this story. I told you this story as a kid. This is an old Burundian folktale. We know this story.
Yes, that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we're just scraping the surface on this film, but more conversations to come in the future. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Saul and Anisia.
Yes, thank you for
so
coming
much.
out. Yeah.